Yep.
Good evening. Welcome to the Personnel Committee meeting, Monday, February 6th. Before we begin, in accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. This agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and those that are reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. So calling the meeting to order at 6:03. Do we have any public comment first from the committee? Not seeing any from the public. All right, then moving on to the approval of our January 9th minutes. Did anyone have any concerns or questions from those, or are we ready for a vote of approval if no one did, as long as no one had any issues? Donna, so you guys are good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, then I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, Donna,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
and Wendy is an aye. Thank you. Ongoing business, HR consultant update.
She will be joining us in just a minute.
Julie, do you want us to skip over and come back?
There's nothing to skip over. Here she comes.
Okay. Hi.
Hello.
Okay. All right.
Can you hear me okay?
And-
Excellent.
All right, you guys can see this?
Yes.
Julie.
All right, I'll let Mary Beth take it from here.
So Julie, you'll be driving for me? Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for your time tonight. Just wanted to give you an update on where we are this month on the classification and compensation study. So going to go through a few quick slides just to give you an idea of what to expect. This is just a rehash of what the project scope was for those people who weren't at the last meeting, to evaluate the job descriptions, conduct interviews, establish comparable communities, review the current compensation plan, doing an internal equity study as well based on the other pay plans, draft a classification plan, provide a final report on February 15th. So that's we're headed for to be on time, and that was the scope. Next thing, just to give you a project update, I'm working on my spreadsheet right now. I have 57 job descriptions drafted. We conducted interviews with employees as needed. Maybe December was a bad month, but we had offered some dates for December. We didn't really have any takers till after this meeting was concluded. So I came back January 19th, put us behind maybe about 10 days on getting all the drafts done because had to do some interviews. But I spent some time evaluating the town's salary plan, I got a lot of feedback on the job description, so I'm working on those edits to finalize. I'm going to draft where I think, everything, the roads have to all converge. We have to agree on a compensation plan. And then based on that, that's where the classification of the job descriptions will go. So it's hard to say right now that, everybody's grade as it is. I assume all the grades will stay the same, but there may be some that are out of, they just kind of pop out as not being equitable to the market or internally. I spent some time last week working with the fire chief. I really appreciated his time. There are a lot of call positions with a lot of different varieties to them, like firefighter call, then firefighter EMT, advanced EMT, paramedic, firefighter EMT, firefighter paramedic. So we went through all the different renditions, and I'm working to give those back to him to look at in the morning. And then I did a few renditions of your pay plan. So that's what's been going on since the last time we met. A couple of questions came up about, what was the messaging to the employees and all that. So the next slide just kind of tells, what the expectations were that were set. Not everybody's guaranteed an upgrade. Not everybody filled out an analysis form. Not everybody requested an interview. So this is just kind of the parameters, the standard blurb that goes out to employees, talking about the SAP job descriptions. Of course, keeping in mind that we did look at some of the union job descriptions, but, we're not, not my job, nor, I'm claiming that it is to negotiate or recommend jobs to the union. So that's basically supervisors got a chance to weigh in on the job description analysis forms. And this is just to notify everybody what, sort of what to expect from the study. Because I wasn't sure if I made that clear at the last time. The next slide shows, I wanted to give you an idea of what the new template is. I ran it by Julie and Heather. So I broke it up because if I scanned one job description onto this slide, it would have been so teeny. So I broke it up just so you can look at it. One of the changes aesthetically, so the green stuff is not going to be on the job description. If you just look at the content of the slide, we're going to put the seal on top. We have the same grid that the town's been using to talk about the status of the job, where it is now, who it reports to, what's the grade. I'm giving you a sample of a library assistant just to look at so you can get the flavor of it. So you'll see the seal, you'll see that box, you'll see a town of Lunenburg, and you'll see a job title. Then the position purpose, which one of my goals in my career is to make this something that people can relate to. So when you post the job, or someone reads the job description, they get the actual flavor of what the job description is. Back in the old days, a lot of these job descriptions would be very, they would have like this boilerplate, the library assistant is responsible for all the responsibilities under their, jurisdiction and their protection. It never really says what the person does. So I try to capture in a sentence or two what the job really is. So that's what you'll see in the job descriptions on position purpose. The next slide is a continuation of page 1. You'll also see the second section of the job description, or the essential functions. These were taken from the library assistant current job description, essential functions. If, as I'm doing this, I see something that I think could be a little bit amplified, or if I see something that, I've written for another community's library assistant that I think might resonate with this one, I've thrown it in, and we're giving it back to the department heads to look at, and they can reject or accept that language if they want. So this is, a sample of what the essential functions look like. The supervision is going to be very clean, who they report to. In some cases, we have all kinds of supervision received, supervision given, supervision. So if somebody reports to this person, I'd put that there too, in that supervision section. Again, just keeping it very simple. Next slide would be what page 2 would look like on a job description. You'd have the recommended minimum qualifications. The first category is education and experience. If this job had another, if this job required you to drive or to have some special certification, that would be listed as additional responsibilities. We don't have that category here for a library assistant, but you'll see as you review the job descriptions to come before you, that there'll be some of the jobs will have additional requirements. And what I mean by that is, excuse me, I'm just reaching one. Might be, for example, if this were the Council on Aging Director, we have a lot of additional responsibilities. If they need to be AED, CPR, certified, serve safe, they need to be able to be Corey certified. So we would put those in this section. Knowledge, ability, and skill, those are typical, as you all know, HR KSAs. So we tried to capture what was on the job description for knowledge, ability, and skill. And again, if I have something that's worded in my mind a little more modern or as a best practice, I'll put that in there. And that's what I've done with your job environments. I've looked at those and I've taken out any kind of reference to, word processing and facsimile machine and some of the older things you see in job environment on job descriptions. For physical requirements, every job is different. If it's a typical admin sitting at a desk job, we typically put that the person needs to lift, carry 30 pounds. Why we do 30 pounds under the ADA? Because that's an acceptable, maybe a box of paper or a box of files, or you might be the one who's changing the Poland Springs jug. So that's, a typical 30 pounds. Some of the other positions under physical requirements, you're going to see a lot more, like DPW will have a push, pull, carry of sometimes from 60 to 120 pounds. Library positions typically have 50. That's kind of a crate of books or something like that. And again, the physical requirements are important, as you all know, for making an ADA accommodation, or if someone's injured and they want to return to work, or if they're on FMLA, that's kind of where the determination comes from on a job. So the physical requirements, again, I'll keep them industry specific and, appropriate to each, whatever the job description is based on ADA guidelines. And then page 3, I thought I had a slide on page 3. Whoops, that might be coming back. Julie, can you see if it flipped to the next one? No, I guess not. Well, page 3, I just wanted to show you is going to have the approval section. It's going to have, notes like a disclaimer about the job description. It's going to have a section on notes where this job description, the essential functions of this job description are just an illustration of this type of work. Reasonable accommodations can be made. Those kind of disclaimers are going to be at the end of each job description. This isn't it's not an employment agreement between the employee and the town. It could be subject to change. So it's going to say that, and then it's going to have a section for approval, and the approval is going to be department head, town manager, and personnel board chair. So you'll see that on page 3. I apologize, slide 3 is lost somewhere. Okay, so any questions on the job description? Maybe I can just touch on these 3 things. They might answer questions and then we can ask. So the formatting notes as a summary, I'm looking at adding a town seal, putting in a clear position purpose, putting in essential functions that the town already has, or that people commented, or they wrote on their analysis forms, or we discussed in the job description interview, or that I've seen in my industry experience. Those are going to be in there. And then again, it's a draft. The supervisor's going to look at it again. when I send the draft. Job environment wording has been updated across all the job descriptions in accordance with industry standards. Again, an example of that would be, employee does word processing, uses a facsimile machine, those kind of things. We put in, standard computer equipment, software applications. We put those kind of things in there. Again, if it's somebody who has to use a special tool or device, that goes in there as well. Like a building commissioner might have to use certain tools, et cetera. And then the physical requirements, all job descriptions are going to be in accordance with ADA standards. And then there's going to be a disclaimer with notes that I read to you about making accommodations, and that this job description is not an agreement between the employer and the town. So just some things for you to expect. So if you're reading a job description and it pops up and you see it, hopefully, this will help to explain. Are there any questions at this point?
Donna.
Yeah, I do. I have a question, and I'm sorry, my name only says Donna, but it's Donna Fortune.
Hi, Donna.
I'm curious, what is in the update, the disclaimer section? You really just said that there was one, but what does it say? Give the flavor of that, please.
Oh, yeah. I'm reading it, and my room is kind of dark that I'm in. It says, what changes in there? Is that what you want to know from the existing job? I'm just putting I've put in a template that the town has always had it say, this job description does not constitute an employment agreement between the employer and employee and is subject to change by the employer as the needs of the employer and requirements of the job change. I've added in the ADA language on top of that. So the essential functions or duties listed herein are illustrations of the type of work that is performed. Reasonable accommodations may be made to enable individuals with disabilities to perform the essential functions. And then I add, this job description does not constitute an employment agreement between the employer and the employee and is subject to change by the employer as the needs of the employer and requirements of the job change. So taking that sentence that's usually above the physical requirements and just combining it at the bottom with the notes.
Thank
So
you.
it's all one thing. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, so Julie, if you don't mind doing the next slide. So in looking at Lunenburg's pay plan, I think I mentioned last time as we did the comps for your communities that you compare yourselves to. In some cases, we didn't have a lot of comps because you either don't have the right similar job titles as other towns and all that. So we did expand a little bit to look at other positions and communities that might not be comparable. But mostly, I want to talk about looking at your current pay plan as is. So one of the metrics we use in compensation theory is looking at midpoint differentials. That is the midpoint between two grades. So let's say, we're looking at grade 3 and grade 4. We need to keep in mind that in compensation theory, they state that clerical and entry-level type positions, the grades should be 5 to 12% between. So that means grade 3, not the endpoints, the minimum and the maximum, but grade 3 itself and grade 4 itself and grade 5 itself should be at least 5% between each other. And then when you get to the mid-management positions, that's kind of the sweet spot on your current pay plan, like grade 8 to 15, around there. Those in compensation world are supposed to be somewhere between 10 and 15% between grades. And then when you get to the executive level, like your 15 through 20, that should be somewhere between 20 to 35% between grades. And when looking at your current compensation plan, your midpoint differentials are lower than the recommended ranges for the grades 8 through 14, the eights like 8 through 13 or 14, and then 15 through 20. Yours are a little lower. So your clerical grades were about 5%. They went anywhere from 4 to 6.7 in between. Your paraprofessional and mid-management ones were only like 7 to 9%. And then your executive positions, those would be like the bigger department heads, grade point levels. Those were not in the 20 to 35 range. Now, understanding that taking a leap going to the maximum industry standard would be so costly. Like I explained to Julie and Heather today on the phone, I've been more in their position than I have been in the consulting role, having been responsible for budgets, being an HR director and an assistant town manager. So I'm really, really cognizant of the budget impact of recommending a pay plan that the town can't afford. So given that, we looked at your current plan and we've made some really conservative recommendations and wanted some feedback on what to do as far as making the pay plan itself. So this is kind of the building block. We're going to look at the pay plan based on the external market survey we've done. We're looking at it based on some of the internal stuff, like how does the clerical union match up to these positions? Because you can't have a clerical employee and they're making the same as their department head, right, who supervises them. So we looked at this internally and externally. So that was sort of the analysis that we had. We think you're okay with your clerical level and entry level positions. Not to say that all of the jobs are put on the right grade, but your grades themselves are where they should be. So Julie, if you could do the next slide. So here's kind of what we're recommending as a first pass on your pay plan. As you know, you have 20 grades on your SAP. We're looking at eliminating grade 1 because a majority of it is well below, current minimum wage. So we were thinking about starting at grade 2 at $15. That keeps you competitive with minimum wage if you're trying to attract those same entry-level employees to that grade, as other people in town, when you're going to look for summer help or entry-level help, at least starting it at the $15 and going up from there. Grades 2 through 7, those were the ones I talked about, the clerical and entry-level positions. Right now, you reflect a 5%. I sort of made it an exact 5% between grades in the proposed plan and a 2% between steps. Why 2%? Because it's sort of an industry standard that people are working towards to keep under the Proposition 2.5 cap, because if you're going to give a COLA and a step, you don't want those two to add up to double digits, right? So 2% between steps is sort of what we're aiming for in recommending this pay plan to you, because then it could be sustainable in your 5-year budget plan, and it's explainable to the employees. For grades 8 through 13, we're trying to work towards reflecting a 10% between grades and still maintaining the 2% between steps. These were the, I felt like your grades 8 through 13 were maybe lagging a little bit on some of the market study that I did, but depending on where we go with the pay plan and the approval of the job descriptions, recommending placement, there may be some changes around there. One thing I found was your grade 14, the positions that are within that grade 14 are very competitive with the market, and your grade 14 is appropriate. So we kind of used that for the anchor of this pay plan and kept that the same. We made it follow the rule. It has about 10% from the grade between above it and 2% between steps. And then grades 15 through 20, even though the industry standard says they should be 20 to 35% between grades, for a lot of reasons, not wanting to inflate your pay plan. I thought it would be comfortable having that be 19%. The steps built, the grades are building up to the maximum one is 19% between grades and still 2% between steps. To my knowledge, after chatting with Heather and Julie today, there are not a lot of people who are above grade 17 on this. I don't think there's anybody after grade 17. So 18, 19, 20 are just on the pay plan, but there's nobody on them. So we can maybe be flexible with those a little bit if you want to talk about that. But this is kind of how compensation theory meets your regular plan, what it looks like. And then if you want to see the proposed plan so that you can have a visual of what I was talking about, sorry if it's not big enough, but not knowing what this, you know, everybody was looking for, we kept we kept 19 grades and we kept 8 steps. Personally, I think 19 grades is a lot, especially because you're not using some. So whether we collapse them or remove some in between steps to give a little bit more between grades, if we removed a couple of grades in their entirety and gave a little bit more of the separation between grades, that would cause that. It would mess up the numbers. So there's a couple of ways you can deal with the messing up of the numbers. You know, they'd no longer be sequential. And if people moved a grade because the pay plan changed, you have to think about the optics. So say they were a 13 and now they're a 12, but they're making more money. People still feel like, oh, I got downgraded, right? Or if they were a 14 and now they're a 16, but they're making the same money, everybody else thinks, oh, they got a big, huge 2 grade increase when they actually are making the same money, but the pay plan numbers changed. So to avoid some of that, the optics around that, I was thinking perhaps you would entertain the idea of a letter-based grade. So doing grades, you know, A through M or whatever, however many we end up with. So those are sort of the things I'm leaving the town and the committee to think about as we, you know, firm up the rest of the stuff behind the scenes. Any questions? It's a lot to digest, I know.
Excellent work, though. Thank you. This looks pretty good.
Thanks.
Wendy, you're muted.
Julie, will you send us copies of these?
The slides? Yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
When we get the final draft of the plan later next week,
Mhm.
additional or different might we see in it?
Well, that was kind of the question. I was toying with the idea of pulling out a couple of the grades, especially if either there's nobody on them or there is a step on the next grade that's equivalent. Because again, we're not doing this study to guarantee that everybody moves, right? We're doing it to right size the plan. And then if on a separate track, if jobs aren't, you know, rated competitively here in town, then looking to maybe adjust that. But so that what it might look like is you might be missing about 3 grades in the way that I might propose it. And they may be letter grades. Just the other thing is, you know, for an example, you have some confusing terms here in town. So there's a number of administrative assistants, most of which are in the AFSCME union, and they are listed as, say, grade 8. But then the admin assistants that are on the SAP, the non-union, are listed as grade 5. So it almost looks like a discrepancy there. So I'm thinking if we went non-union letter grades, then it wouldn't seem to be so different. Because the two pay scales are different, even though they call them, you know, so the grade 5 and the grade 8 might be equivalent. They might be in the right range, but they're, you know, it's confusing. I'm doing a sheet of whatever grade everybody's on, and it's confusing when there's positions that are in the union and out of the union with the same job titles.
Are you thinking that the letters would be sequential?
Yeah, that was my question. I was wondering what the town thought. Like, do you start with the higher grades, start with A? And, you know, do you want it to be descending letters? It's however you want to do it. You know, right now we're starting at grade 2. We knocked off grade 1. Should grade 2 be A? And grade 20 be, you know, whatever. If we knock out some grades, it ends up being like, oh. So those are kind of the questions I thought about.
Well, either way, that, you know, people are going to look at this in a sequential way, whether it be 1 or
Right.
A.
Exactly.
Right, so,
But it's just awkward if we take out some rows, then there's
yeah,
numbers
agreed.
missing.
Yeah, agreed.
And I guess the other thing is I don't know that this would be the case, but my concern would employees and the public look at it as if we were trying to potentially downplay differences in similar roles, similar titles, union, non-union. That's my only concern doing that, is that if there is that discrepancy there, and again, these aren't union positions, I do understand that, but I mean, I think some of what we were trying to achieve was to ensure some equity here. So
Yeah.
any other questions?
Barb,
Barb has.
Barb, oh, sorry. I'm trying to scroll through. There you are, Barb.
Hi there. Sorry, I'm just looking at my situation. I was in grade 11. My pay rate went down. So are you changing people's grades in this study as well?
Yes, that's one of the ideas, is what you might have on a job description right now. You know, someone might be grade 8, level 4, and in the new pay plan, because it's going to be fewer grades, they may end up a different grade, like they may end up a 12 or a 13. And like I said, it's very often the optics that get you, like, oh, Barb got a 2-grade upgrade, when in fact you might be making the exact same thing, but your grade is called a different number. So though that's where, you know, I tried to keep the grade numbering system as just so it looks familiar. But when we're taking positions and placing them on the grid, like even at their current rates, you're absolutely right. It's a grade 11 isn't a grade 11, because keep in mind, we changed the difference between grades and we changed the difference between steps to make it uniform and predictable. So people are going to have to be placed differently anyway. So I think if we went to the letters, it might not be so much of an ouch either way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Julie, what are our next steps? Will we be reviewing the final draft at our next meeting?
all of the job descriptions will be sent. The goal is, what do you think, Mary Beth, by?
Well, I hope that's the other thing, is report format. Typically, when I do one of these reports, I include the job descriptions in it, but because the numbers are like this is going to end up being like a 200-page report if we do that. So if you're okay with just putting them in a Dropbox and us referring to the job descriptions, you know, comments on them, like here's one comment. you know, the town provided an administrative assistant job description that was generic. And now I've created, you know, Board of Health, Council on Aging, Building, Land Use Conservation, all of those different administrative assistant job descriptions. So I may talk about things in categories instead in the report, and provide the job descriptions via, Julie suggested Dropbox. I think that's a really good idea.
And then at that point, we would review at our next meeting, Julie.
I would review beforehand and discuss as a group.
Discussion regarding that.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of jobs, so I wouldn't be surprised if you don't get through it for your next meeting, but I will try to have, I'm going to have the draft report, the draft pay plan, and the draft of where I think positions should be based on the pay plan. I just wanted to make sure we were on the right track, giving you a conservative looking pay plan that was, you know, explainable, sustainable, that whole thing. You know, we don't want to give you a product that's going to cost $100,000 to put everybody on the pay plan, right? So that's why, you know, it's pretty conservative looking one, but the idea comes in, are the jobs classified appropriately, both internally, externally? So that's where, that's going to be one of the calculations that you'll see, what everybody's making now, where we think they should be, that kind of thing.
How will we be able to visualize what the job descriptions and the pay grades were versus what you're recommending now?
So I've got an Excel spreadsheet. So at the beginning of this project, Julie gave me the SAP pay plan, and she gave me an Excel spreadsheet that was called List of Active Positions. So as I've gone through that list, I've put what the current grade is. You know, did we do a job analysis form on it? When did we send the edit? And then I have a comment recommendation. So we're recommending reclassify, or we're recommending a new job title, those kind of things that you'll see a column for that. So there'll be a spreadsheet that'll sort of go with, and then on the job descriptions, it's going to say proposed grade or current, like the current grade will be there, and then the proposed grade will be in a different color. So you'll see, you know, you could look on a grid where you're at. So there'll be visuals that way.
Okay, perfect. What about any changes in the job description itself?
So that was, we had that discussion today. So because we completely changed, took the job descriptions and put them on a whole new form, there's not really a tracking. And if you did have tracking, you would see so many lines through job environment and physical requirements and all of that. That's why I covered generically those sections for you. But if new essential functions are added, I'll put those in color. Because having new essential functions sort of changes the, you know, if they're of a significant responsibility, that sometimes would change the job somewhat. Like example, you know, we talked about today, there was a, you know, you had years ago a charter change that changed like a planning director to a land use director who's in charge of the whole, you know, all the land use departments. So if something like that were in one of these job descriptions, that would be significant and that would be highlighted. Like the supervision has changed. Now they're responsible for 3 departments, something like that. And then if you had to drill down, Julie had emailed me all the analysis forms. So, you know, that's another, like if there was a job that you were like, oh my goodness, this should be a 4 and we said it was a 12 and you just really had a question, you had the analysis form there to see where the, you know, where the employee filled it out, what the supervisor said about it. So you have some tracking there.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mary Beth.
Okay. My pleasure.
Much appreciated. Looking forward to seeing everything final.
Just getting your feel for it. Are you okay if the job descriptions are in a separate document instead of the whole report? Or do you want this to, I mean, I can cut and paste them into the report. It's easy. I'm doing them anyway. So it's just a matter of, do you want to, the reports are typically about 20 pages, and then you're going to have 2 to 3 page job descriptions, numbering in the 50s over and above that. So it might be about a 200-page document.
I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm thinking separate just because, but that's,
My only concern with separate is that they could get disconnected over time. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, somebody tries to do this again and they'll be like, where are the descriptions?
Yeah. And that's exactly why I put them in usually, because it's a profile, like a snapshot in time of where you were with the job description. So it's fine with me. I'm not planning to print it, so I'm not killing trees, but if you choose to, it'll be a document that, just don't know if we're going to be able to email it around, if that'll be a Dropbox document too. It's going to be
Yeah,
pretty good.
Dropbox would be the way to do it, because you
Yeah.
will have trouble. It'll be too big.
Yeah, it'll be way too big, yeah.
And it depends on the mail server. Some will say,
Yeah.
okay, now this will be like, no.
So the actual job description forms, Julie will still have those separate if she has to separate them out and give them to people. So what I'm guessing is to save space, I probably won't put the town seal on every one of them inside of the report, and that'll save some margin space, and maybe I'll see what I can do to save some space. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah, I think it does.
I think so. Thank you. I know Joanna popped on committee. Do we have any other questions, concerns, anything we want to ask Julie about? Before we move on. Joanna, you good? Because I know you came on after we started. I did see Joanna.
Yeah, she's using Jay's phone, but looks like that's Joanna.
Okay, that's what I thought as well. Okay. All right. Then we will await the document.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then-
Thank you.
Great work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Beth.
I appreciate it. I had a chance to work with a lot of good people. I enjoyed it. All right. Thank you. See you
Thank
soon. Bye.
Committee, do we have anything else on this topic?
Hand up.
Thank you.
When is the next meeting?
Well, in theory, it's the first, right? Hold on. I'm trying to see. I'm trying to scroll for hand up. Whose hand was?
It's Barb.
Barb.
Sorry, Barb.
And that may actually help either if that was Donna's question. I was thinking we should know what the impact is of what she's recommended, because the budget has to be determined. So I don't think you want to wait a full month. I don't know, Julie, you might know when Heather needs the numbers. It's just a thought. But there's,
Yes,
this
March 15th, but I
impacting FY24 budget.
Mhm. I know we had talked about mid-March was kind of that drop dead. I don't know if that's still the case, Julie.
Isn't
Yeah, I
that
know.
for the warrant for the town meeting? That's why we did that, right?
Yes, that was originally.
go to finance, the finance committee.
Let's go. It would have to be ready
I
that
think
third.
that's why, what the March 15th was, anything would have to go to finance before it could go to town meeting.
You know when you're on the FinCom schedule by chance? Personnel Committee?
I haven't seen a date. Julie, do you know?
I do not.
I think Heather sent out a email with all the groups and their dates. I don't have access to it right off the top of my head.
And I probably don't receive that email. Eric probably received that, is my guess.
Hmm. So I guess the question is, with typically we meet first Monday of the month, would that give us enough time? And
We're gonna, when do we get the report? Is it next week?
next Wednesday, the 15th was what was listed there.
I would think if everyone comes prepared, it's enough time.
Not that it matters, but we'll need to make sure, Eric, I am not here the first Monday in March.
I'm not sure what kind of internet coverage I will have the first Monday in March. But I will, I'll do my best to be there. But again, so maybe the last week in February might be better, but we all knew these timelines when we started this process. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. At that mid-March, and that was why we were, knowing that we might need to skew meetings or whatever based on that. I don't know. Joanna, could you do, what about the 27th?
Yeah, Joanna's not on the meeting. It's Jay. Joanna had a work meeting tonight.
Oh,
She's
Jay.
on her way home. I was trying to get a hold of her, but I can't connect.
the 27th is the caucus. No, that's not right.
I was
Wrong
going to say
month. Hang on, wrong month.
there. It's the 20th of March is caucus. That was one random date thrown out. I certainly am not, you know what I mean? I just figured I'd start Monday nights. And I don't know, maybe they're not good as far as, I know Joanna has struggled with them sometimes with her work commitments. Eric has as well. So I don't know.
Oh, yeah, to do these one-offs is really what you're saying.
Mhm.
Well, maybe we could get the report and, give a day or two, but let's make sure that it's well-known. Give a day or two for people to kind of look it over. It's going to be daunting, right? Because you're going to look at a 200+ page report and be like, oh, but I think based on what she said, it's going to be relatively easy once you kind of get in and, dig in and spend some time on it. It should be easy enough to trace how they got to where they got. And if that's the case, let's put out a feeler maybe by the end of next week to see if people are feeling like they need to meet more, or, because we all have questions for each other, or if we're good to wait until 6. Or, I know you can't be there, Wendy, but.
I mean, it is what it is. Yeah.
What are we going to do? Because who's going to run the meeting?
I think that's a good suggestion.
The chair might be able to run the meeting. I'm hoping Eric can be at that one.
I'm just teasing.
I know. But my only concern is if something comes up for anybody, you know what I mean? I don't want to not have a quorum. That's the only reason I brought it up, really.
Let's try for a one-off in between and see where we go.
Okay,
All right, let's keep the 6th. 'Cause
Okay.
That's our regular meeting. And try
perfect.
for a second in the middle of those two on Monday and see if we can get a quorum.
That would be good.
It's okay.
That's a good idea, Donna. Thank you. Julie, we're over here chatting. Are you okay with that?
The 27th?
No, sort of a one-off in the middle before the 6th.
Yeah, I mean, just have to let me know the date and yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Or at least even, discuss half,
Right.
chunks.
A lot
just-
to tackle at once, it really is.
And maybe you won't have many questions. You won't really know until you get into it.
Right.
So,
All right, then do we want to try and have the 27th be the one-off since we're here? And then see
Is
if we
the
can prep for that night?
The 20, if we picked the 20th, it's smack dab in between when we get the report and the 6th.
that's a
all-
holiday. That's a
holiday.
holiday.
Oh,
Donna.
it's a holiday. Okay, never mind.
That was kind of why I pushed through to the 27th
Yeah,
was
let's try for the 27th then. 27th and then the following week. And
Mhm.
hopefully we're done.
okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Any other public comment from the public?
Me again.
Barb, yeah.
Sorry. I just found Heather's thing, and she does not have the personnel committee per se on her presentation schedule, but she has other moneyed articles. And she just, Julie, I just think Mary Beth should give her a heads up on a potential increase that she needs to be prepared for.
She
And,
will.
and put personnel committee on that presentation. Because if she's not expecting it, it's gonna be worse for all of us. Thank you very much. Just a thought again. She's not counting on it.
Any other committee have any comments? Hi. No, here we thought you were here all along.
We've been talking to Jay, thinking it was Joanne.
Yeah, we're like, hey, Joanne, are you there? How you doing? And he's probably like, it's Jay. We're gonna try so that we are able to have a little bit of discussion prior to our next meeting on March 6th, because we've got that mid-March deadline, to do a February 27 sort of pop-up meeting. Could you be on that? Okay. Hopefully Eric can as well. So we will, next week is when finalized report will come through. So we would get after that chance to digest it, talk on the 27th, talk again on the 6th. That's where we're at.
That's perfect for me. I hired an assistant clerk that started last week. So she'll take my Monday license commission meeting. So I'll be able to go back to this beautiful committee.
Okay. All right. Then committee, any other comment? Any other public comment from the committee? All right, then I will accept a motion to adjourn 6:56 p.m.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor, Sue?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Donna?
aye.
And that's an aye for Wendy. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Julie, your
Bye-bye.
hair's getting so long.
I think you just always see it up.
Oh, that could be, looks very nice.
Thank you.
Have a great night, ladies.
You too. Bye-bye.